Are we live? Hello, hello. You can hear me? Everybody can hear me? Okay, I guess we are live. All right. Wait, my microphone's working? How do I know if my microphone's working? I'm on, everybody. Let's see. Good, I'm in. Fantastic. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. My sincere apologies. It's not, it's, I couldn't even describe what's happened, but here I am. Okay, we're here. Fantastic. Yay. Okay. All right. Welcome. Sunday Night Live, Monday Morning Madness. Put the air conditioner on. Okay. What did you say? The left eye says to the right eye. Between me and you, something smells. Automatic sheep. I'll try to figure out what that means later. It's working all good. You're in Sydney. Okay, good. We made it. Fantastic. Instagram's working good. Okay. All right, so let's get on with it. Just it's the regular old reminders. If you have a current situation with CFCs, the clinic, my clinic in the U.S. at an Oasis of Healing in Arizona, we're still up and running for 20 years, and please give us a call. The other thing is the three groups: the health and healing group, the parasite group, and the CFC group. CFC's cancer. We call it CFCs because that's what it is. It's chronically fermenting cells. It's not zodiac signs, so we're not going to even go there again. So I hope, if there's any new people, just to let you know, CFCs means what they call cancer, and it's just an astrological sign, so we don't use it. It's ridiculous and inappropriate, and scares the hell out of people. Yeah. So anyway, the membership group, the health and healing, parasite, and CFC groups. We have webinars, we have weekly interactions with me, and I have several people that, kinesiologist, raw food person, nutritionist, lifestyle coach, psychotherapy. How do you feel about being in this situation? And share it with others. Almost every member has joined that because there's a lot of stuff that goes on when you have this situation going on in your life. It's there's probably nothing more traumatic. I can't imagine anything more traumatic to deal with. So of course you're going to have emotions that have to be understood and expressed and resolved. And you have got a lot of people to join you on that. So it's Kathy's a wonderful lady. She's a psychotherapist. She's been through all of this herself. She's she's just a perfect person for this situation. And of course, everyone loves her, but it's a way for you to deal with all the stuff that's going on inside. And it keeps going. It's not like something you take care of at one time. Okay, so when we're dealing with CFCs, we're dealing with a situation that is mind, body, and spirit. And we have to do that from the beginning. It's not like we're going to take care of the body, then we'll think about that later. No, it's all at the same time. So good morning, everybody. Good evening, everybody. And let's get started. Gut is your second brain. Gut health is very important. Thank you. Fantastic. So everyone, as you know, on Twitter or X and TikTok, we are at Dr. Thomas ODMD, and all the other platforms: Instagram, Facebook, etc., YouTube, Rumble, and LinkedIn. We're at Dr. Thomas Lodi, no MD at the end. All right, so that's it. And let's get on. Let's get on with the questions because we missed so much time. I sincerely apologize. Okay. Oh, one last reminder. You know, the human diet that we've had so far, 2 parts to the 4-part series, right? So the first part was called Nature's Design, and really we were looking at was how are we designed to eat, right? Because it's obvious that anteaters are designed to eat a certain way, elephants are designed to eat a certain way, lions, you know, so are we. So what is that? We talked about that. By the way, that will be episode 5, which is a new one we've added. It's going to be expanded because I didn't cover everything. I realized after doing it and experiencing it that there were several really important aspects that I needed to leave out. So that'll be repeated 2 weeks after episode 4, which is September 11th. Episode 3, which is coming up, August 28th, is what does the research say? So now we've talked about what nature says, you know, how we were designed. And the question is, what does the research say? Because that you know, that kind of matters. So we're going to look at epidemiology. We're going to look at regional eating habits, world regional eating habits. Anyway, it's going to help you show what the research says, because that's really the bottom line. Anyone can talk about what they think we should be doing, but what matters is what's happening. What does research show us how diet affects health, and especially CFCs. And the 4th episode will be exposing the myths. So we're going to talk about the oxalate myth. We're going to talk about the lignin myth. You know, there's just all sorts of myths that persist and actually keep people from doing something that they kind of intuitively feel like they need to do. It just keeps them from doing it because of all these bizarre myths. You know, kale is no longer a superfood. Well, it was, it is, and it will be. All right, until it gets schwabbed, or now once it gets finked. Yeah. So, all right. So that's it. And so we're going to switch the name from the inner circle because we think it's just it sounds better. The Dr. Lodi's community. And it's a community, and you'll see that once you join, if you join, that you're going to be with people that have been through this, maybe going through it longer than you have, and they've got a lot of information. I learn a lot every day from being on the Telegram groups, because once you join, you got different special Telegram groups you'll be on with different aspects of the program, and you'll be sharing with not only me. I'll be on there answering questions, but so will others, peers that are going through this, have gone through this, are it's akin to the kinds of relationships that form in Alcoholics Anonymous or all the different anonymouses, Overeating Anonymous, gamblers. It's where people who are peers who have been through this and have some have failed and some have succeeded, but they have so much information. And a lot of times it's more important than the information you get from someone who has not experienced themselves, even though I have vicariously experienced it thousands and thousands of times and gone through all of the emotions, and I've seen every side of it. So, but anyway, the groups are fantastic. And so it's called Dr. Lodi's community. Okay. The Dr. Lodi community, sorry. The Dr. Lodi. So here we are. All right, so Daniel, that's a question I'm gonna have to think about after I get started. Now, as you all know, the platform here is I'm gonna answer questions that have been sent in already that yes, have been sent in, and we've got them here for me to answer, rather than do live questions that are coming in. And a lot of things are gonna be coming in because, as we talk, more questions will come on, and before you've even you've come on because you've probably got a lot of questions in your life. So what I want you to realize is something very important. When I'm answering one question about someone, it'll relate to all of us. We all are the basic same person. I know you don't, that's a hard thing for people to believe, but we really are basically the same. And you find out when you fall in love with people, you find out with family, you find out with friends that you're really all the same, right? And then somehow we attribute to strangers as having some power or something different from us, but it's not. It's not. We're all the same thing. Biologically, emotionally, spiritually, we're the same. We might have different language capabilities, and I might have green hair, you might have blue hair. That's it. So that's why when we're talking about someone's issue with their heart, with their lung, with their liver, whatever we're talking about, we all have hearts, lungs, liver. So keep that in mind. All right. So we're going to get into the questions right away. They're small. Okay. This one's on lung CFCs, and this is from Nancy, who says, is a 10 millimeter nodule, same size, 2 years in a row, considered benign? I was told any number above 10 is considered CFCs. Now there's a 2 millimeter lesion on the upper lung, same lung. Any advice for treatment? Is liver and it's ivermectin. It's a abbreviation, Iver. Is ivermectin and fenbed a good treatment? Okay, so who's this again? Okay, Nancy. Now you're already calling it lung, and you're using that word, that astrological sign. Okay, so you've already nailed yourself. You've already, you're there. So first of all, you have to, if they haven't done, it doesn't sound like you've done a biopsy because you're not giving any information there. If you haven't done if a biopsy has not been performed, and you got a nodule, that's what you got. You got a nodule. Don't call it anything else. Okay, you don't know. Don't call it that. But what you need to do is realize. So usually, if something hasn't grown in how long was it? 2 years. Wait a minute. So 2 years in a row, it hasn't changed, and it's a little nodule. And now there is a new one. Okay, so we don't know what we're dealing with. What you do know is you've got something going on in your lungs. We also know that the body is an entire system. And it's not like any particular organ can be affected in one way, and there's no distant ramifications or anything like that, because it's all one system. The heart only works because there's a lungs, and they all only work because there's a liver that keeps the blood clean enough so it does work, and the kidneys have to be working, so it all has to work together. The brain, so basically it's one system. So we can't think of, we do isolate organs, we isolate physiological systems, but it's just our imagination. The thing is, it's one. Our body, mind, spirit is one huge. We're huge. We're way beyond. When you look at our electromagnetic field, it's way beyond what we can see. So this nodule, there's a non-invasive. When I say that, I mean a non-biopsy method of finding it out, and that's what a PET scan. All right, so a PET scan will show you if there's any activity that is what CFCs do. All right, because they pick up glucose at a much higher rate. A PET scan is they inject fluorodeoxyglucose, and they wait, and then an hour, and then they scan you, and whichever parts of the body are picking up the glucose at a specific rate, at a certain high rate. The only kinds of cells that do that are CFCs, right? Funguses will pick them up faster than normal cells if they have fungus in there. So there's different there's different levels of the SUV, so which is a standard uptake value. Okay, so anyway, a PET scan is important, but it's usually a PET CT so that you get the CT shows you anatomy. Is there something there, and what are the dimensions and all that? So by getting that and the activity level, you can pretty much tell if it is or not. And then there are really important blood indicators, and not just tumor markers, because tumor markers can be up or down. You can have a large tumor and a normal marker for that particular tumor. So the tumor markers are, they're helpful in some degrees, but there's other parameters in the blood. We look at the LDH, we look at the ferritin and iron ratio, we look at the thymidine kinase. We look at all that stuff. We also look at is your liver functioning? Are your kidneys functioning? It's all really, really important. And all that stuff shows us metabolically what's happening. So if metabolically your LDH is low, your ferritin is low, and you have enough iron, you're not anemic, those things may seem unrelated, but they're directly related, because they have to do with it. Each one requires a whole explanation, but they're all related. So you can look metabolically, not just at the markers. And we can pretty much tell with that and the PET CT what if you've got actually what they call CFCs, or what we call CFCs. Now, so what I would do is, while you're undergoing these diagnostic tests, is start the process that you would do if it were happening, and that you should do anyway, just because you've been alive for as many years as you've been alive, and that is start to cleanse the body. The body has got to be cleansed, and the easiest way to do that is to do a juice cleanse, which is vegetable juice, celery, cucumber, kale, spinach, lemon, and apple are the main fundamental ingredients. You can add to that. You can switch out a couple of them. The reason the spinach and kale are chosen is because together we get all the amino acids, and then the lemon is sour. It takes away any bitterness that may be, because every batch of vegetable you get might have some bitterness or not have bitterness, depends on the batch. But the lemon takes care of that, and then the apple takes away the sourness and makes it delicious, makes it sort of like an exotic lemonade. But you can switch that out. You can use, if you prefer, pineapple or something else, or carrots, whatever you want to make it delicious. Don't worry about there being too much natural glucoses in there or anything. Okay, because if it's not delicious and you're doing it just because you have to do it, your immune system will be suppressed. That's just the way it goes. So if it's not good, it's not good for you. That's really true. All right. The opposite's not true, but that's true. So that's where you start, and you get a biological dentist. At biological dentist, you make sure the person's certified by the IAOMT biological dentist to take a look with a 3D cone beam CT of that area of your body. It takes like a 10-second sweep. It's really quick. And then they can look at some structures and tell if you've got any like deep cavitations, or if you had any root canals. Anything like that has to be resolved, because those are on meridians. In other words, meridians are circuits in the body that touch other organs, right? So there are certain teeth that go down and from the thyroid to the breast to the stomach to the spleen on one side of the mouth, and on the other side of the mouth, the pancreas. So those organs are all involved. So anyway, we have 32 teeth, hopefully, or that's what we're designated to have. And each one of them has specific organs. So you've got to have that taken care of. And that might sound hocus pocus to some people, but I've had many times a tooth affected on a particular meridian that happened to coincide where they had CFCs, like on the breast meridian or liver meridian, prostate, colon. And by just removing that properly, which is requiring ozone and a lot of stuff by a biological dentist, that's it. You just pulled the plug. It's no longer going to happen. So it's that significant. So that's what you want to do, Nancy, initially. And yes, ivermectin and fenbendazole are really important. They're part of the cleansing part. part. They're part of getting rid of toxins, because parasites are definitely toxic to the body. So the ivermectin and fenbendazole is good. I would add in a third one, niclosamide, and then a fourth one, nitazoxanide, which is a linea, so that you're getting all the protozoa as well as the worms. And then an antifungal as well, like fluconazole or nystatin, itraconazole. And to get really detailed on this, which you should want to get detailed, please join the inner circle if you because of your concern there of having lung CFCs. And please stop using that word, the zodiac term. But that's where you have to begin. But if you join the group, you'll get a basic program, and we'll get you going, and we'll work with you. And you can talk to me weekly. Talk to me so we can discuss and analyze your situation. So that's it for Nancy. Let's look at Ophir. F-I-R. This is brain CFCs. Is it safe to treat an astrocytoma tumor with ivermectin and fenbendazole, or whatever the doctor will recommend, while undergoing radiation chemotherapy? Yes. Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. It's safe to use those depending on your liver function. And I don't know what other medications you're taking, so I don't know if there's any interactions there. So I really can't tell you what you should do. But in my experience, people with brain CFCs are very capable. There's no reason why not to. And even when they're undergoing harsh treatments like radiotherapy and chemotherapy, yes, because this, as you all know, I'm sure everyone that's listening today knows how it knows that chemotherapy, maximum tolerated chemotherapy, which is what you get in hospitals, and radiation, both at best they can shrink down a tumor or tumors, but at the same time, sadly, they enhance all of the 6 steps necessary for a successful metastasis, which is what you don't want. So sadly, that's what happens. And I know with brain, you're probably in a situation where you had to, and there are times you have to. And the have to times, I usually try to settle with just the radiation and not the chemo, because the chemo doesn't really work, and it causes those other problems that I discussed, and even more. Wipes out your immune system. It does a lot of other things. And if you have to do chemo, then you would do it with insulin and low dose. It's called insulin potentiation therapy, and if done correctly, it's fantastic, because you get 1/10 the dose, and you're using the insulin to make sure you get it to the target, which is the tumor, which you don't have when you get maximum tolerated. Every cell is getting bombarded. And the reason they call it maximum tolerated is because any more you'll be dead. That's maximum tolerated. So, but sure, certainly you can, if there's no problem with the liver, or no medications that he's taking or she's taking, that might conflict, and you can actually look that up yourself online, or join our groups and we'll talk about it directly. You can ask me a question, or ask your doctor, but your doctor's going to say, why are you taking that? So you're probably better off not to do that. So and I've noticed here we have 2 questions in a row talking about ivermectin and fenbendazole, which are great combinations. But I would add a third, niclosamide, because it is also very powerful for the worms, but it is a very powerful and heavily researched medication used for CFCs in and of itself, not looking for parasites. It's used in ovarian CFCs and osteosarcomas. So it's, yeah. So, but the combination of those three not only get uh, parasites, which you have to do a parasite cleanse, uh, but they also directly turn off specific pathways that cancer requires. You know, the MAP kinase, P53, there's things that are called oncogenes that are really just the ways in which the cell has had to adjust in order to survive on fermentation. So I would add that, and I would add the nitazoxanide, which is an anti-protozoal as well as worm element. So next question, Dave. I was just diagnosed with adenocarcinoma of the esophagus back in April after not being able to swallow solid foods over 3 months. I had to do 4 rounds of chemotherapy every other week for 2 months. And I had a PET scan done last Monday, and the tumor shrank by 1/2. Now I'm heading for esophagus restructuring surgery on 9/11/25 to remove my esophagus and cut my stomach in half and shape it like a tube and attach it to the upper sphincter. After I heal for 6 to 8 weeks, I have to do another 4 rounds of the same chemotherapy. Can I do the ivermectin and fenbendazole during my last rounds of chemo? Or should I wait till the treatment is finished? It's interesting. People are choosing, just those two, ivermectin and fenbendazole, and they're still doing the mainstream way. Okay, Dave, esophageal can and is can be very difficult to deal with because of its function and its role. It has to do with eating. And what I can tell you about surgery in this case and in most cases is that if it worked, this whole problem with CFCs would be easy. We wouldn't have a problem. We wouldn't be having this live stream. Okay, because it just doesn't work. Because CFCs is a systemic problem. It's happening. Remember, the body is one system. It's manifesting in one particular area for a variety of reasons, but it's a systemic problem. And if you don't deal with it systemically, in other words, if you don't remove the cause, which is some form of toxicity, whether it's hidden dental problems such as root canals, or radiation exposure, or eating food that people eat, or insane levels of stress and other toxicities and EMF, and you put it all together, and the water and then the fear that's going on with different aspects of our society now. So you put that all together, and you've got plenty of reasons for cells to get to lose their mitochondria, so that they have to begin fermenting, and that's what happens with CFCs. So I'm seeing a lot of people, using this ivermectin and fenbendazole. But with regards to the surgery, now the surgery, I don't know if they've told you full disclosure what life will be like, because that's what I've really concluded, is that The only way they can, the only way they can convince you to do such a thing is to make sure you're scared to death, literally scared to death, and then they're telling you this is the only way out. Well, of course, if someone's told they're going to die or there's only one way out, of course they're going to take the one way out. I mean, most people. It doesn't happen to be true. Now, I don't know your particular situation. And you must understand that. Everyone must understand that. We're talking about anybody's situation. I don't know it, and I'm not there, and I haven't done a physical exam, and I haven't, looked at all the blood work that I would want to and other testing. So, I can't say with certainty about to anybody what they should do. But what I can tell you is that for the most part, what we have seen, and I've been doing this for about 40 years now, is that the surgery not only doesn't work, it more often than not, makes the problem worse in many ways. The trauma from the surgery, the inflammatory, systemic inflammatory consequences, the the fact that when you're cutting something out and it's got CFCs, they disseminate. We know that. Even biopsies. So we do them when absolutely necessary, but we have to really have some, important variables. So you're scheduled to have this done. So I'm thinking you've got it in half already. So I don't know what that means, and I don't know if there was one tumor or what. So esophageal CFCs are usually at the latter part, the distal end of the esophagus, near where it enters the stomach. And excuse me. And that goes through a sphincter. I'm not sure what sphincter you were talking about. Into the stomach. So because of that location, and it's usually in the part that's right near or is the part that's in the stomach. And so because of that reason and location, we see the lymph nodes around there. They're obviously going to be picking it up, and it's going to go to it's also going to be affecting the stomach. And then you've got the liver, and there's a lot of other organs and glands around there. But that's the problem. And once you cut that out, let's say you were to resect it, and I guess resect the stomach. I don't know if I read that or not, but I want to make the stomach a tube. In other words, elongate it, and then they're going to put it into. You said the small intestine. Put the tube into the upper sphincter. Oh, so you mean probably this sphincter here between the esophagus and the stomach? All right. So anyway, a lot of times what they do is they'll bypass all that, and they'll go into the latter part of the small intestines, like the jejunum. But this sounds like what you're saying is that they're going to try to maintain as best they can is the anatomy of the gastrointestinal tract. So going through the mouth, through the esophagus, into the stomach. Now there won't really be a functional stomach. I'm not sure how that's working there. So keep in mind that every aspect of our anatomy and physiology is there because it serves an absolutely necessary purpose. So we can't certainly we're not going to be better off without it. And in this situation, it's your eating is extremely affected and all that. However, if you feel in your heart that you've got to do this, then you should always do what you feel you should do, because if you don't, you're going to feel it's that you've been violated or something. and that will impact your immune system, which will affect your ability to recover. So it's essential that you follow your heart, but it's also essential that before you do that, that you educate yourself as much as possible. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So that's another important reason to join our circles, because we talk about that. We discuss what's, all the new things that are coming out, or the old things, and what's true about them and what's not true about them. Right? So you have a big decision there, Dave, and you're really a perfect person that would to join our the Dr. Lodi community, so that you could talk to me detail, and to the other members, and get some guidance, and that's exactly what we do. So I can give the guidance from my perspective, and then all the other people who have been through that will give you their opinions. So, but we've got we'll give you a specific plan. But it sounds like you had a good response to the maximum tolerated chemo. Okay, now cervical. This is Ada, and she says, I tried to Zoom with the inner circle, which is what we used to call it. Now it's the Dr. Lodi's community. It's not hard to say. We might have to play with that. But it is 3 a.m. in Romania, and I failed to stay awake so far. I don't blame you, and you shouldn't be. So we'll be starting a group, hopefully in a couple weeks, on Saturdays, my time, around 3 or 4 p.m., which will be, I think, 8 a.m. or something in Europe. And so that everyone, because a lot of people in Europe and the UK are not having an opportunity to sit through these meetings because it's 3 a.m. So we'll be doing that. Anyway, so the question says, I failed to stay awake. I have the parasite protocol from Dr. Lodi's group. I found an angel of a pharmacist, and ivermectin, compassionate, and veterinarian. I found that angel of a pharmacist and a veterinarian, compassionate enough to provide me with all the antiparasitic drugs without a prescription. Wow, that's fantastic. They certainly are angels. My question is about praziquantel. I can obtain it only from the vet, an injectable solution. And I was wondering about my mom, who has been diagnosed with cervical CFCs and could do the subcutaneous form of praziquantel. All right, so these are so small. If is it a must drug for cervical CFCs, and is it for my mom, who has been diagnosed with cervical CFCs? And does she need subcutaneous praziquantel? So, okay, there's other parts to your question, but let me just start with that. Of the anti-parasitics, anti-worms, praziquantel has some very specific uses, like for tapeworm, liver flukes, especially the ones that cause CFCs in that area, cholangiocarcinoma, and so a third one that I add is niclosamide rather than praziquantel. So if I know I've had specific exposures to certain, the tapeworm and liver flukes, there's a few other indications for praziquantel. But unless those specific situations have existed in your life, then niclosamide is a much better overall eliminator of CFCs and really gets in there and shuts down those pathways that allow CFCs to be alive. So that would be the third one I would add. And I don't know how veterinarians have access to that, but it sounds like your doctor, will write a script. These are 12 weeks on, 3 weeks on, and 1 week off for certain intervals. And you've got to be pretty steady with it. But you've got to check your liver function first. So it either you find a practitioner in your area that will understands this stuff and work with you, or they're removing all, or join our groups, please. So I have so far ivermectin, albendazole, fenbendazole, metronidazole, nystatin, and fluconazole. Would that be enough? So she's 75 years old. She was full of metal and cement. I'm sure you're talking about the mouth. Okay, so you're close to finding a biological dentist. All right, so you've got you've got a really healthy start, but you're still buying the term the astrological term instead of using CFCs, which means every time you say it, your mother gets stabbed in the heart and her immune system goes underground. So you got to change your language. You got to do the cleansing. And everybody, even the people that have not been diagnosed with anything, and which is a wonderful thing, have to cleanse. We have to cleanse. We live in a toxic world. There's no way that we're not toxic. So so whatever condition you start in, whatever you find out, if you have CFCs, if you have stage 1 or stage 100, because their staging system is ridiculous. But regardless of what stage, the first thing you do to heal, which is the goal is healing, not just getting rid of one particular problem, because there are a million problems that could become or exist. So you've got to start with cleaning house. You've got to clean the garbage out. You've got to clean because that waste not only causes gland and organ and tissue destruction, but it also weakens the immune system for many reasons. All right, and it is the reason. It's the accumulated toxins that have a critical number mass that are able to cause mitochondria in the cells to dysfunction. If you get 60% of them dysfunctioning, it has to resort to a fermenting cell, and that's what happens. So we've got to eliminate them. We've got to eliminate the toxins. If we don't eliminate the toxins, then we haven't stopped the reason it's happening. So you've got to start with that. So and you're in Romania, and I'm not sure what's available in Romania. I had a patient, a person I was working with there who had an incredible husband who got everything. He even found a doctor there who would, I guess he was a friend of him, who would do all the things that we would do. But yes, you're on the right medications, but you've got to be maxing out your vitamin C. You've got to be doing the 2 grams of the liposomal 4 times a day. You've got to be like overdosing on vitamin D3 and K2. You got to be overdosing on the mixed carotenoids, which are vitamin A's, and I would add elastin to that, which is a carotenoid. Melatonin, you want to get up to 180 milligrams a day. You can do smaller doses during the day and then large one at night. The melatonin, and the other one is the iodine and thyroid, which we go over. I've gone over many times, many times in detail, and you'll find them online in these. All of these are archived at Instagram and Facebook. But also, joining the inner circle, that content is available as well. So right now, just the point is, the cleansing. And I don't know. You didn't mention if your mother is. Let's see. Was that enough? It also be stated that she the rest protocols. She should. They're using laser, so you see. I don't know if you're talking about alternative holistic doctors, or you're talking because they would use lasers in a way that the conventional not. So I'm not sure what you mean in that, right? Yeah. So anyway, it's too cold in here. Yeah, I'm not sure what your mother's gone through, what she's had, and what's going on in terms of chemotherapy. But not knowing that, I can say that the medications you're looking at, the albendazole, femda, you don't need more than one benzimidazole, albendazole, fenbendazole, mebendazole, one of them. You don't need 2 of them. So the ivermectin, the one of the benzimidazoles, and okay. So I don't see niclosamide there, which I would recommend. And so the metronidazole is the antiprotozoal you've chosen, which is good. I would consider doing one that has a much broader range, which is the nitazoxanide. So you found the biological dentist. She's going to have a left. She's going to have a tooth left. She's not going to have a tooth left after treatments. She was full of metal and cement. The laser that they don't use and they don't use ozone or PFC or PRF. All right, well then it's not really a biological dentist. You gotta stop. Don't use them. Okay, they've got to be certified by IAOMT, not just a member, certified. You don't want to do this incorrectly. All right, so it's tough because you're in Romania, and I just don't know. I don't know what you have access to. I know of a wonderful Spanish doctor, Dr. Jose, who's actually an oral surgeon. But he does all of this, and he does it all extremely well. He gets some amazing, very, very difficult situations with people um, that I've seen the guy is crazy good with his hands. Dr. Jose in Spain, but if they if they remove any teeth, any cavitations or root canals, and they don't irrigate with ozone, then it's not sterile, which means that there's those organisms that were in there are still in there. So you're not going to really solve the problem. And if they don't use the PRF, which is this, when they take your blood out, they spin it at the top. It's platelet-rich fibrin. They use that to seal it up and to so that it heals quickly. Without that, you get dry sockets and other crazy complications. So if they're not doing that, it's almost not like getting it done at all. So if you have to leave Romania, I know it might be difficult, but I don't know what to say, but somehow you've got to get the right person doing the right things. That's really the problem worldwide, is finding the right practitioners that are going to help you. It's impossible. All right, so let's go to the next question. Wait, excuse me. I got to turn this off. Oh, sorry about that. It's not going to turn on. Sorry, I live, even though I live in the most wonderful place in the world, they're doing construction next door. Can you believe it? I'm in a pristine place, part of the world. It was when I got here. Now they're doing construction next door, and I think that's part of the problem that happened this morning. It was chaos. Anyway, I can't turn it off. I know it's noisy. I'm sorry. Anyway,
Answer that question. What medications will be best? Well, join the inner circle because we go into detail, and you'll get a program. You'll get a program to follow that you won't have to, be asking these questions or wondering. But yes, with what you're referring to right now, you're taking, as I said, you only need one benzimidazole. Should she do a juice cleanse? Yes. So as I was saying, that's the first thing you got to do. Yes, yes, yes. Juice cleanse, and I discussed what that juice should be, and do it how long? As long as you can, minimum of 3 weeks. Now I don't know her nutritional status, so I can't really tell you what you should do in that regard. But unless someone is like really cachectic, starting to where their body's eating itself, unless someone's like that, then yes, they can do it, and they can and should do a cleanse. They've got to. They've got to cleanse it. I just saw this flash up. What happens if you have hepatitis B? It depends on your liver functions, how severe they are. You would have to adjust the dosage, and you can adjust the dosages. So you can. So you either adjust the quantity and or the frequency. Okay, so and then you also add things in that are going to help with the hepatitis B, such as alpha lipoic acid, silymarin, and things like that, which you're going to be doing to protect the liver anyway if you're doing all these drugs. Okay, so that's that. So she lost 15 pounds, 5 kilos. I'm sorry. Yes, so absolutely. And by the way, for people in Romania and other people in Europe, we're going to be starting. I'm not sure when it's going to be, but soon, within weeks. A Saturday afternoon for me, which will be Saturday morning for you. And for people in the U.S., it'll be in the middle of the night for you, so it won't be convenient, but you're welcome to join it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so here's Marla, also a member. So I sent an answer twice on the protocol, twice on the Parasite group, but it wasn't answered. Anyway, I have a drug resistant ringworm on my hips torso for over 8 months now. I've been using oral fluconazole. I tried itraconazole, terbinafine, and one other. This is so small. How do I make it larger? Oh, large. There we go. A topical terbinafine itraconazole also has not made a difference. You're washing twice daily, changing bedclothes, towels. Nothing seems to work. Change your diet to exclude grains and sugar, eating mostly vegetables. Lots of homemade fermented kefir and sauerkraut, and fish, supplementing with these. Should I do the juice cleanse? Okay. All right. Yes. So I apologize that your question has not been answered. I'm glad we're having an opportunity to answer it now. So yes, you should begin the juice cleanse. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's never a question. Unless, as I said, unless you're cachectic, your body's eating itself. You're not hungry and you can't eat, and your body's just kind of dissolving. then you wouldn't do the juice cleanse right away, but there's ways to work with that. And then the other things, you lots of fermented food, excellent. You're taking vitamin D, zinc, iodine. All right, so please, if you can, join the inner circle or the Dr. Lodi's community, because you'll get a full program. This is not what you're describing, is not a full program. So yeah, you need to do the cleanse. You need to do it for a certain period of time, and that involves not just the juicing, but it involves cleaning the colon. It involves lymphatic work. It involves a lot of things, meditation, prayer. So there's a lot of things to cleansing. Removing parasites is one. The biological dentistry is one. There's different aspects to that. So of course you're feeling scared and desperate, and now. So you're in the parasite group. So you obviously have, you're talking about the ringworm, but I'm wondering, do you have anything else, or is it just the ringworm? Because, as you know, that's a fungus. So you should be talking about antifungals. I hope are you taking antifungals? I don't see them in your regimen. So did I hear you say that? It gets so hard to see with this. Let me see here. Anyway, yes. In this case, with ringworm, specifically, if that's what we're talking about, then you need to be using antifungals. Okay, ivermectin though does help, but in addition, fluconazole, itraconazole, and nystatin are usually the most readily available almost anywhere. And there's things you can do. Can I share my screen? I think we could share the screen here. I don't think we can. Yeah. Anyway, the medications that are used with ringworm specifically are metronidazole. I'm sure you know about that, right? You know about the how do you say that again? Terbinafine. I'm sure you know about the terbinafine, and you know about the metronidazole. Tinidazole is similar. Nitazoxanide is similar. They'll all work with this, and there are topicals as well. And you're saying you're using those and they're not working. So perhaps there are other parasites that are supporting it. So doing a full parasite protocol that I think you were suggesting makes absolute sense. But also cleansing, yes, absolute cleansing. And the other aspect is your immune system is somehow not keeping this in balance. So I don't know how close you're living to a 5G tower or towers, which can directly affect the immune system. And since most people can't just move, it's very important to get Faraday clothing for that. But if it's not going away and you've used standard treatments, that means there's something supporting it, or it's probably impossible to identify what that is or what they are. So really, other than doing that, so instead of spending a lot of time doing that and money, cleanse and get rid of whatever it possibly could be, and that includes the biological dentist, the juice cleanse, all the things that we do talk about. Okay, essential. Okay, so I'm not sure if I've answered that question, because I don't know your. Now, where are you? You're in. You're a member. So you're a member. So you're in the parasite group. So come on the next parasite group, and let's get you. And your name is Marlo, Mario. So we'll get that question answered. We'll talk to you directly. Let's talk directly on the next parasite cleanse. Okay. So make sure that Kyle knows. Kyle's the moderator. Make sure he knows that we had this discussion that we need to address your specific situation, because I need to ask you some more questions, Mario. Okay. Now here's another member. It's Jane. And she says, my dad's left ear has a tumor that is about 2.4 centimeters and is experiencing some hearing loss. Wait a minute. Some mornings he's experiencing some white fog around his mouth. He's wondering if that is caused by parasites. We saw your video on Red Note initially, and also joined the parasite group. All right. I'm not sure what Red Note is, but so 2.4 centimeter tumor on your left ear and hearing loss. Well, there's what happens with there's a tumor that can form on the acoustic nerve, which is the nerve that kind of it's the seventh nerve. The seventh is the facial nerve. It affects our face and also affects the hearing. And that crazy is cell phones directly affect that and cause what are called acoustic neuromas. But you're saying on the ear, so I guess you're talking about the outer ear. I'm not sure what's going on. That would be really helpful if you could talk. So you're in the parasite group. So Jane, let's talk next time. So you and Mario, we need to talk next time in the group specifically. Let's get you to be the first two people on our next parasite group, so we can talk about this specifically. Because I'm not clear what you're saying. Because an acoustic neuroma is one thing, and then you're saying a 2 centimeter tumor on the ear, which is affecting your hearing. Now that could also be, so the ear you could have squamous cell, basal cell carcinoma on the ear, melanoma on the ear. I'm really unclear on this. I think to address this would be really helpful if next parasite. Okay, so you and Mario will be number 1 and 2 on the next call, so we can discuss it directly. I need to find out what's going on to answer you properly. So the next question is Rebecca. It's regarding parasites. And I am an RN who is very interested in step-by-step with dosing parasitic cleanse for my kids and myself. My daughters have long-standing GI issues with long COVID diagnosis. The pediatricians and internal medicine providers don't seem to have any knowledge of the reality that everyone has parasites and how beneficial. Okay. Oh, okay. Long COVID. I'm hoping. Well, I don't know of anyone that has long COVID who hasn't gotten what they call a vaccination, and that's a whole different issue. But in doing the parasite cleanse, um, I've mentioned it many times here, and I think just today, the basic one is at least three of the anti-helminthics, which are worms, the ivermectin, fenbendazole, or mebendazole, or albendazole, which is one of the benzimidazoles, and niclosamide. And then the fourth one would be nitazoxanide, which is a very broad anti-protozoal, which is the second type of parasite we talk about. It also gets some of the helminths, the worms. And then an antifungal, which will be either fluconazole or nystatin or itraconazole, or a combination. So, and with regards to your daughters, their ages, but these medications are pretty safe. The ivermectin and fenbendazole niclosamide are used worldwide by children, adults, animals. So they're relatively safe. And the problem most of them can cause is that when you're taking several of them at the same time, they all need to be cleared by the liver. So the liver gets overworked and you can have elevated enzymes. And so a good protocol is 3 weeks on and 1 week off, and 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And while you're off, or even during the whole protocol, you can be taking things that will support your liver's regenerative ability. And that is alpha lipoic acid, like 300 milligrams 4 times a day, with a thiamine supplement. Silymarin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Silymarin is part of the milk thistle plant. It's the active ingredient. And NAC and acetylcysteine, also very important for liver, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. So that would support the liver while you're taking these medications. So, but you're right. Pediatricians and internal medicine doctors are not for. I'm in internal medicine. We go through the training and all that. Unless you specialize like in tropical medicine, where you deal with parasites a lot, you won't even think about them in your practice. Most people don't think about them. They might be now. I don't know if now what we're doing in I think the real world of medicine is creeping into the conventional with regards to parasites. But you're right, most of them don't know, and then if they do know anything about them, they're going to know what they're taught, and that's usually way underdosing. And the reason you don't want to underdose parasites is because if you underdose them, then you're just what that means is you're not killing them. And you may be killing some, but you're not killing enough of them. So what happens is they migrate to get away, and they wind up going to other organs, and they go to the pancreas and the brain. You just don't want them to migrate. So you don't want to undertreat them. You want to just get them. And the only thing you have to do is take care of your liver. Make sure your liver is being protected, and that's what the supplements we talked about. So anyway, Rebecca, what I would recommend is join our parasite group. And then I can talk to you specifically about what's going on with you. Okay. So, my deductible is met. So, Rebecca, with regards to calling you, that won't be possible, but if you can join the group, the parasite group. Okay. But it's step by step, as I said, and I don't know how old your kids are and all that. So there is, But just to let you know that ivermectin is used for children down to 2 years old, um, all over the world. I mean, for example, a river blindness, onchocerciasis. There's 250, 350 million people worldwide are affected with it, and they're taking ivermectin continually for years because they have continual exposure. So in terms of safety, that's been done. It's clearly safe. I think one of your big problems is going to be what I have found is just getting a hold of it, right? And we of course we're solving that problem. And if you get in touch with my assistant at hello@drlodi.com, she can help get you the medications. But there are also online pharmacies. What's that one called? Maybe one of the members could post it on this, but and that's another fantastic aspect of our groups is that some of these members have been going through this a long time, and they've got incredible resources. I mean, how to get everything. So, but there's ways of getting it. Um, of these medications, because it's very hard. First of all, it's hard to get a physician to go along with it and write the prescription. But if you did find one, then it's even as hard or harder to get a pharmacist to fill it because they won't fill it. So you're kind of stuck. So you've got to find a physician that knows about it and who has connections with pharmacies. So a lot of people are going around that by getting it online or from other sources, or you can, as I said, you can write to our hello@drlodi.com. And you didn't say where you live, so I'm assuming you use the word RN. I'm assuming you're US. Let's see. What is small? Okay. Amber. Again, parasites. Um, I found a dead parasite in stool on August 19th. Doesn't look like a white worm. It is clear and though I can see veins in its head about an inch long, but it could be broken. I had major memory problems, anxiety, heart palpitations, random aggression, short temper, acid reflux, diarrhea, constipation, irritability. I had colonoscopy 2 years ago, but they didn't mention parasites. Okay. Wow. Um, yeah, I'm not sure what you're describing. It's too bad you didn't get that and take it to a laboratory and get it tested. You can do that, because that would be really helpful. Um, Labs do that. I guess they usually need a doctor to order it, but I don't know. There's a guy in our groups that has has the ability to. He's got sources to do almost anything without having to go through a doctor and get anything you want. But you can either take it to a lab or you can go to your doctor and say, "Look, I found this in my stool. I want it analyzed," and it'll do it. It's simple. It's a simple thing. It's very important if you find it to let's figure out what it is instead of guessing. Because as you said, it could be broken. We don't know what it is, but it's definitely not a protozoa, so it's going to be a worm. So I mean, you would do all of the antiparasitics that we talked about, ivermectin, one of the mezimidazoles, and the niclosamide, clearly. And you would add in nidus oxonitis as a protozoal anyway, because there's never a situation where they don't exist. Excuse me, 1 second here.
Okay, my God. I'm really sorry. We had this incredible situation next door with the construction. Just it somehow they blacked out our entire building, and it's just crazy what's going on here. So I'm trying to keep it out there. Anyway, so anyway, and going back to Rebecca, where can you find that information? Just please join the Parasite group. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with your situation specifically. And with regard to Amber here, so you say you're having memory problems, anxiety, heart palpitations, random aggression, short temper. A lot of that is if anyone is at all following the what's going on with 5G, that's what it does. It's I don't know what I can say and I can't say, so because of all the rules on all these platforms, but find out. You can look on there are maps available that show you the density of 5G towers in your area, and just if you're in a really high density, you've got to get out of there. You just got to get out of there, or you wear Faraday armor. It's crazy. But a lot of that's because we're thinking that it might be obviously you're thinking that it might be due to parasites because you had the colonoscopy and they didn't mention it, but they don't mention parasites usually because they don't think about it. They're looking for what they're looking for. They're usually looking for tumors, colonoscopy. They're not looking for parasites. Unless they saw a big worm, they wouldn't even think about it. You're right. So anyway, if you find anything dead or alive, it doesn't matter, in your stool, you got to get it analyzed. Find out what it is. But in any case, the ivermectin, a benzimidazole, a niclosamide, and then nitazoxanide for the protozoa that also gets worms, you're going to get them all. You're unable to get rid of them. All right, so and they can be affecting your situation, anxiety and memory problems, but that sounds more like 5G. So if you are being exposed to 5G, or you sit in front of a computer all day, you have any other type of exposure like that, living in the city, one thing you want to take is molecular hydrogen, and Dr. Mercola's got a brand where you drop a pill. I dropped 3. You put them in a glass and you pour water on it, and they bubble up. And once the little pill goes to the top, and it's starting to dissolve, you just drink the whole thing because you want to get the bubbles. The bubbles are molecular hydrogen, and that directly targets the hydroxyl radical that results from the EMF exposure in cells. It directly penetrates, goes into the cell, and turns it into water. So that's definitely one thing you should be doing. All right. So this is Bella, and it's on colonoscopy. Should someone with suspected colon CFCs get a colonoscopy? And if so, under what circumstances? Okay, so suspected. So I'm not sure what that means, but it could mean that the caliber of the stools have changed, your bowel movements have changed. There's if the caliber has changed, they're getting like pencil thin shape, then of course there's some sort of obstruction in there, and that could be
case. I don't know if you've had imaging that showed something and they want to do a colonoscopy, but well, yeah, I mean, yes, in going up and finding out if there's something there, but the problem is that they're probably going to biopsy it, and then they're going to recommend, if they find something, that you remove the colon or part of the colon, and so that's the problem with that. So yeah, it's helpful in finding out if there's something there. The problem is that they're going to scare you into doing all sorts of stuff that might not be in your best interest. So that's the only other problem. But Bella, what you can do though is you can start by what everyone starts with. Start with the cleansing. You got to maximize your vitamin C, your vitamin D, your melatonin, your iodine. You've got to maximize all that stuff. You get them up your mixed carotenoids, the vitamin A's. You want to maximize all that. All right. And you're going to be cleansing your colon. You're going to be doing lymphatic work if you can find a certified lymphatic therapist. There's lots of it's really helpful to have a practitioner you can work with to help you balance your hormones. Because you need to balance all systems. Because when we're not well, what it means is that we're out of balance, right? And something we're either getting too much of something we don't need, or not getting enough of something we do need, and it's usually a combination of both. And that means we're basically toxic, so we have to clean out. So that's where you start, and you continue it. You keep cleansing. So suspected colon CFCs. I really wish I knew what you meant by suspected, but you've got to start. Everyone has got to start with a biological dentist and a juice cleanse. That's how you start the process. A real biological dentist who uses ozone, who uses PRF. There's no question about that. That's got to be part of it. So you make sure they're certified by the IAOMT. Certified. All right. So now we have Mary, and this question is about lupus. I'm 64 years old and I have lots of health issues like lupus, thyroid, and arthritis, IBS. My 33-year-old son suffers from severe ulcerative colitis and is currently on antiviral, which is causing pain and inflammation in the sacrum. Do you by chance know if there are any physicians in Tucson, Arizona that treat parasites? All right, so your son has ulcerative colitis, and you've got the issues you discussed. Now, lupus is it's systemic lupus erythematosus, which means, or SLE, or it's considered an autoimmune disease, term they like to use. But I don't know about first of all, diseases don't exist. That the body's trying to adapt to situations that are thwarting it, not meeting its biological needs. But lupus is what they call a diagnosis of, well, it's not a diagnosis of exclusion. What they have is a set of criteria. I don't know if it's 18 or what it is now. And if you match any 4 of them, then you qualify for the diagnosis of lupus, which is ridiculous. And so there are many, and whatever is happening in the situation that we call lupus, it can affect multiple organs from the brain to skin to kidneys, anything. Sadly, what they treat you with often are steroids. Well, your thyroid and your arthritis. So first of all, you've got to clean up your life because you've got these whatever's going on with your thyroid. Now, thyroids are we've all got something called subclinical hypothyroidism because we are we just don't grow up in cultures where we eat a lot of seafood, which is the best source of iodine. So wakame and kombu. So by not having enough thyroid, iodine, we wind up having a poor production of thyroid, and we have hypothyroidism. So we've got to correct that. So we've got to correct that by iodine, and you can use Lugol's iodine. It comes in a liquid in the pill, and usually it's the dose is like 25 milligrams a day, and you can get iodoral, which is a brand, or you can get Lugol's tablets, or you can get the liquid and drink it with putting drops in the water. But you've got to correct that problem. And while you're correcting it, remember iodine does decrease um, um, thyroid output. And so what you've got to be doing is using the basal body temperature um, technique, where you put a thermometer in your armpit in the morning when you wake up before you get out of bed, and you look at your body temperature, and you average it at the end of 5 days to see what the average temperature is. So in Fahrenheit, if it was above 97.8, and in Celsius, if it was above 36.8. I mean, above, then you're okay. If it's below, then you have what's called subclinical hypothyroidism. And temperature correlates almost directly with thyroid, because one of thyroid's function is metabolic rate, or which is results in heat, energy. So you would need to be replacing the iodine and using a thyroid supplement while you're doing the iodine to ensure that your thyroid function is healthy. And the arthritis. So by doing the cleaning. Now there's different kinds of arthritis. They can happen from just wear and tear. From if you have a particular job that you excessively strain certain joints. If you're like a printer at a printing press and you're up and down all day long, your knees are being stressed, your hips are being stressed. If you're a worker, your hands are being stressed. And just living over time, you're going to develop different kinds of what they call osteoarthritis. There's rheumatoid arthritis, which is considered an autoimmune disease, and it affects different joints and has nothing to do with your use of your joints. So I don't know. You just mentioned it once. You didn't say whether or not it was crippling you or. And now the ulcerative colitis for your son. Ulcerative colitis is just an extreme dysbiosis. Okay, and that's got to be corrected. When we're talking about a dysbiosis, we have to remember that one aspect of it is you have to heal the gut, and by healing the gut, we use glutamine and aloe vera. There's something called what's it called? Anyway, it's a combination of aloe and uh, and um, glutamine. But you can get glutamine in a powder form, and there's different ways of getting glutamine. You can get aloe, the fresh aloe, glutalamine, and I think it's made by Cellcore. I'm not sure who makes it. Glutalamine. But that's for helping cleanse it. All right, and I would do a cleanse first, especially ulcerative colitis. Do a cleanse, a juice cleanse, and then the reparative part is the glutalamine or glucose and I mean glutamine and um, aloe in one way or another. The other one is Akkermansia, which is a small, it's a microorganism whose job it is kind of to fix tight junctions. And although we all have Akkermansia, we don't usually have it in high enough concentrations, and that's because the bacteria, the microorganisms that live in our gut, are living on the food we eat. They're living on us, and the food that we eat, they can also they also do metabolize, and you result in different kinds of environments in your body depending on how they metabolize it. So, what you eat is going to determine which bacteria and you know, archaea and all the other microorganisms that are in there, funguses. It's going to determine which ones are there because which ones are preferentially prefer the food that you eat. So fast food eaters have one set of microbes. Um, so that's so with ulcerative colitis and with anything, even your situation, Mary, is the cleansing, like the minimum of 3 weeks of a juice cleanse. Have the colon clean, colon hydrotherapy or enemas, and start maximizing your physiology by going to bed early by 9 o'clock, making sure that you're maxed out on your vitamin C, D, A, iron, melatonin. And not iron, iodine, and make sure that the what one overlooked. We look at vitamins, we often forget that minerals are kind of like the batteries of enzyme systems. They really have to be replenished, and they do lots of other things too. Um, and so, a good multi-mineral complex, like what's the one I have? Who's it made by? Designs for Health. I think it's the name of the company, and it's called Complete Mineral Complex. Anyway, I take 3 of those twice a day. So the minerals, you got to make sure that. So what I'm saying is, you do all the things to balance your physiology, but you've got to be working, especially with ulcerative colitis. You got to be working on restoring a good gut flora, and then that won't exist anymore. It won't exist because um, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, SIBO, and then just a regular dysbiosis are just different levels, different kinds of dysbiosis. Dysbiosis means that you don't have the proper relative proportions of microorganisms in your GI tract that are beneficial to your health. That's what a dysbiosis is. So now taking probiotics is, of course, very helpful. And you want to make sure the probiotic strain you get has many species, because remember, if you've got lots of species in there, they're kind of like they've built a community, a little ecosystem they can survive. The one that we use at our center and that I usually recommend is ultraflora, because you get like 150 or 450 billion colony forming units. But more importantly, you're getting what is it, almost 30 or 40 species that are in there living in an ecosystem. Now they're very likely to colonize, which is what you want. But again, if you're not feeding them what they need to eat, they won't stay around. They'll die out. Now we've got Chicky. Do you believe in all the fluzine vaccine and pneumonia vaccines? Especially, are they safe for people with CFCs? Well, as in most things, you really don't want to know what people believe. You want to know what people know. And I know that vaccines are unnecessary. Because what were we doing for depending on your religious or scientific background, for how long we've been around? Well, how did we survive without vaccines until the last 100 years? How did all the animals survive without vaccines? Because there's a natural way in which we become, our immunity develops, our ability to not be affected by a microorganism. So, and this goes for any vaccine. So what you're mentioning here are flu vaccines and pneumonia. And they scare you into believing, especially if you're elderly, you should get that. If you've had your spleen out, you should definitely get it, the pneumovax. But now think about the flu vaccine. It changes every year. Why does it change every year? Because it didn't work last year. It's not going to work this year. So they're changing. The reason they're changing is they're saying because the flu, the, the virus involved in the flu mutates and has different forms, or whatever they think. But anyway, what's more likely happening when you have what we think of as a flu, which is more than just like a runny nose and a sore throat and headache. It's the whole body aches, and you're usually, no energy. It's pretty incapacitating. Well, we're assuming that's caused by a virus, and instead of assuming that our bodies are eliminating toxins, because that's what's happening. It's a detoxification, and you can see that by the runny nose, by the cough, all the stuff that's coming out. And if you're lucky, you're one of those people who don't want to eat when they're not feeling well, because that's always better to heal, because you're basically close to a fast. You're just not eating that much. And that's always helpful when you're trying to heal, unless you are cachectic or in starvation. Okay, please understand that. So I don't believe in flu vaccines and pneumonia, pneumovax, nor do I know, and I also know that they don't work and they cause problems. So my advice is not to do it. I think I told people about the story where I had a CPA in New York. She came in and she was talking like this.
and she had gotten the flu vaccine the year prior, and was talking like that, very slurred and slow. And she's a very educated and articulate woman. She was a CPA. It took about 6 months for that to resolve. And then the next season came and she got a flu shot again. You might ask, why? How did that happen? And that's because uh, people are convinced. I don't know how it happens, but people are convinced that there are viruses that are going to get us, and by doing a shot every year, and we find that people that get the shots wind up getting the flu. Basically, they feel bad, and not everybody. Okay, but anyway, at best they do nothing. At worst they cause problems. So just stay healthy. You don't need to do that. Lots of zinc, vitamin C, all the things we talk about, eating right, all those things, and you're not going to be plagued by it. So here, here's another question, and this is from Joseph. And this question is the cure for papillary thyroid cancer. You're still using that word. Don't use that word, Joe. Okay, thyroid CFCs. Okay, so papillary is one of the thyroid CFCs that are more easily dealt with. That and follicular. And that's, again, what does that mean? That means that's where they formed. That's the cell type in which they formed, and that's why they'll call it, papillary or follicular. So I'm looking for a protocol for my dog. Okay, so this is ridiculous. I should move this. I know over 50% of the dogs die from CFCs, and I'd like to find out what I can do as a parasite cleanse for them on a maintenance treatment to prevent CFCs. All right, so you're asking questions about a dog. I'm not a veterinarian, so I haven't studied veterinary medicine, but they do give these drugs to dogs. They do give fenbendazole. They do give ivermectin. And I'm not sure what else veterinarians give, but they give it. So you're looking for a protocol. Well, okay, so I don't have a protocol for dogs because I really don't know. You must have a veterinarian, and try to find one that is. And it's hard. It's hard anywhere, even here. Find one that is knowledgeable and loves animals. But this is not considered unusual for animals, so they all get uh, anti-parasitic medications. Dogs get heartworm medications yearly. So anyway, that shouldn't be hard, Joyce. Okay, but everybody should understand that these medications are not only for dogs, they're for horses, they're for raccoons. Now, here's the next question, and this is it looks like from Instagram.
Do you have any thoughts about getting the shingles vaccine? Don't get it. I don't get vaccines. That's crazy. A shingles vaccine? Shingles develops from the, in immunocompromise. Your immune system gets compromised. You've had chickenpox, and it's dormant on a dorsal nerve, and when it comes out, it goes along the nerve, and it presents. So usually shingles is on one side of the body, and it's like a strip or whatever. But that's it. That's shingles. It's not symmetrical, and you don't find it all over. Getting a vaccine, I would not get a shingles vaccine. That's crazy. Absurd. All right, so thoughts on the sodium selenite and methylene, methionine restricted PUFA diet to influence ferroptosis and apoptosis. Well, all right, so I personally don't have any experience with using that. Sodium selenite is a good form in which to use sodium when you're dealing with CFCs, because they can fit right in. But you're saying, excuse me, that it's a sodium selenite plus methionine restricted. So the protocol involves giving you sodium selenite. I imagine that's orally, and then methionine restricted diet. Which is a PUFA diet to induce apoptosis. All right, well, to sodium selenite, we used to give it IV. And there was a great paper from the Karolinski Institute out of Sweden on sodium selenite. Great paper. And it specifically dealt with CFCs. But you've got to find a practitioner who has sodium selenite. It's not oral. You're not going to get what you're looking for orally. But it's an IV protocol, and I don't know of anybody that knows about it because there was just a few of us. But it sounds like you might have someone, Monica. You might have someone who's willing to do that. And a PUFA diet to induce ferroptosis. That's kind of complicated because PUFA means polyunsaturated fatty acids, right? And the saturated fatty acid means there are no double bonds. Everything is saturated. In an unsaturated fatty acid, there's at least one double bond, means it's not saturated. And that would be like olive oil, omega-9s. So, and then the polyunsaturated is where it has multiple areas of double bonds, which means it's highly susceptible to be oxidized, right? And it's called peroxidation when it comes to membranes of cells. And so, and we know that the more PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, that we have in our cells, the shorter is our lifespan. So, I would never think about doing a polyunsaturated diet. But that being said, the diet I would advise and that I recommend and that I do is plants. Eating plants. And any plant that doesn't make me have a rash or is your dinner, right? And that's everything from broccoli, cauliflower, um, kale, spinach, watercress. Uh, it's a wide variety, lettuce, all that. All right, so all of those things, tomatoes, avocados, sprouts, all those things are going to have um, polyunsaturated fatty acids. But I think probably the way to avoid them in excess is in the cooking oils. All these cooking oils, canola, the seeds, and whatever, are highly oxidized already, and um, yeah, just, yeah. So anyway, but a PUFA diet doesn't make sense, because I don't know what it means, but if you're eating lots of vegetables, you're getting polyunsaturated fatty acids. But what I would avoid are the extracted oils, like any extracted oil. Now, of course, for your salads to make them delicious, put avocado oil, put walnut oil. Um, there's all kinds of seed oils. It doesn't matter. But usually that's how we like to eat salads. Or you can learn to eat salads with not. But that's hard. Most people, want at least that. And you can do that. So I don't know what the PUFA diet would be. But it doesn't make sense, because we know that the more PUFAs we have in our membranes, the more easily they're oxidized. And if it's an internal membrane, like mitochondria or lysosome, it's going to cause real specific damage. And if it gets incorporated into the DNA, then we're not going to have babies. So now this is Calista. Okay, so stage 4, stable 5 years in local recurrence on the same breath. And then you're saying different parts, other parts stable, and is surgery a question? No, I would say no, not knowing your situation, but from just the way you're describing it, which of course I can't give you medical advice, but I can tell you that from my perspective, a stage 4, meaning that they found evidence on PET scans or CT scans, that it has gone to other organs. So definitely, what do you want to do? You want to do everything possible for this to heal. Oh, I hear it. So it's very interesting. You're saying stable stage 4, which means you've been in stage 4 for a while. You've been on probably some sort of conventional therapy, which is going to be, chemo and or radiation, or what they call immunotherapy, or things like that. And so stable for 4 years usually means there's been no change. It didn't shrink, but it also didn't grow. Right? It's just unclear. You please join the group, because you're saying stable for 5 years. There's a local recurrence, meaning local recurrence must mean that they resected, or they did either a lumpectomy or a mastectomy or biopsy, but usually means they did surgery and there's a local recurrence, or it's near it. It's either on the lesion or near it. You're having a lump or something like that. But stage 4 means it's also elsewhere, like in the liver, the brain, or somewhere. We'd have to talk about that. So there's a lot of unanswered questions that I need. All right, so this is why you should join, because it's impossible for me to answer. All right, so it's impossible for me to answer this because I don't really understand your situation. So step, join the CFC group. It's really important. You'll be able to talk with me 2 days a week, which will be my ongoing input into what you're going through, and I would be happy to help you through this. I just don't quite understand what you're talking about. But the basic approach is do the same thing and treat it locally. It's a local recurrence on the same breast. Anyway, so I guess that means near it. You've got a lump, you've got a mass on that breast. So anyway, it's time to do something, but please get on our group, because we have a basic program. We'll answer questions directly and sometimes be able to guide you to the right person in your area. And you'll have, all of the benefits that we talked about. I just don't, I can't list them again, but you've got Darren and Vanessa and Kathy and Donna, who do, there's no charge. It's just part of the membership. But they demonstrate what we're talking about in terms of movement, in terms of preparing uncooked food, and Kathy with, psychotherapy and working with our emotions regarding all of this. So, but you'll get a specific answer to this question, because I'll understand that what you're asking. I'll understand all the existing variables, but also you'll have a camaraderie and a family of people that are incredible, who are very smart, and they help each other, out of love. There's no charging in or anything like that, and there's no weird stuff going on. It's just an incredible group. So you've got to join it. What's an appropriate email? Oh, for me, Thomas at drlodi.com. Thomas at drlodi.com. That's to Autumn. Okay, I hope you're listening, Autumn. Thomas at drlodi.com. Or actually, hello at drlodi.com. And then my assistant Fa will arrange the meeting, if that's what's going to happen. All right, now. Oh my gosh, it's the same. It's funny. It's like, I wonder if, well, I guess if you're brand new, you would ask the question, but anyway, so this question is from Bunny Duck. And the question is, your thoughts on parasite cleanses? Should we all do one per year? And the answer is yes. My thoughts are, we've all got parasites, the vast majority of which we have no idea they're there. They're too small. They've never even been identified by the medical authorities. but they're the known ones, which are the worms and the protozoa, and we know about those. And then the ectoparasites, which are disgusting. They burrow into your body. Um, so there are ones that are obvious that we know about, but most of them we don't know about, but they're in there. So we need to do this cleanse. And the cleanse, and I often heard people who never had any particular symptoms, right? So they were just doing it because they understood that everybody had parasites, and they were just doing it like your question once a year. And I would say 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on. I would say if you have no symptoms or anything like that, I'd say just minimum of 3 cycles. And the protocol would be, as we said, ivermectin, benzimidazole, niclosamide, and idazoxanide, and then either fluconazole or nystatin for the funguses. And you do them 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And I would do um, at least 3 cycles a year. But people often talk about how since they started it, they've got more clarity of thinking, their energy's improved, all kinds of improvements uh, that they're noticing, and they attribute it directly to have taken the medicine. So, um, the effect of parasites on our body and our mind and all that is profound, and we're just not aware of it. We're not aware that that's what's causing it because we don't see them. So yeah, and that's what I do. I do an annual 3 cycles. Okay. So the next question is Peter, who's saying that fenbendazole criticized lately, CFC's coming back worse after first success. Any thoughts? Yeah, well, I haven't seen those criticisms, so I'd like to see them. Um, I'm gonna have to look it up, unless you'd be kind enough to send them to me. But well, that's kind of easy. Think about it. If you're doing a treatment and it's fenbendazole, and that's all you're doing, then you're still fueling the whole process. So even though you might be successful at eliminating what's there, smoking and your lung problems. So as long as you're still feeding it, whatever you're doing to eliminate it is not gonna. It can't be successful. So that's the only thing I can imagine. Or we haven't found the other toxicities and they haven't been eliminated, such as dental, gastrointestinal. There might be other problems going on that we're not aware of. Um, you know, so what time is it? Oh, whoa! After 10. Okay, guys. I'm sorry. I started late and I took you too late. I really apologize. I I I'm gonna have to move. I'm gonna have to move because I think I found the place. So I got to move, and I'm so sad because it's beautiful here. But the construction is crazy, and now they're interfering with our life over here on this complex. It's just tragic. But I will only be won't be far away. It's still very nice. I like living on the beach. Um, but so I sincerely apologize. I didn't realize it was so late, and I know many of you are like not a, not around. Uh, Oh, here you guys are. All right, good. So anyway, um, yeah, that's it for this week. Okay. So anyway, I'm very, very sorry about this, and I'll see you next week, and I'll be on time. 'Cause I gotta move. I gotta move. That's all. I just gotta move. Sorry about that. I don't think I'll be able to move this week, but I've got to move and get this straightened out. But join the inner circle, because a lot of times we've got all this. Like it's a great question, but I just don't have the information to really respond. And so that's where we would have our dialogue. We would say, I'd say, well, blah, 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 blah. Does this happen? Did you get this? And then we discourse, and then we find out, and then we can really hone in and discuss the problem. And then we got all these other geniuses in the group that are going to help too. So it's fantastic. So, that's why I made these groups, because I saw that when I was doing just consultations, I was working with one person specifically, and then each person, it was so similar, because we're dealing with the same thing, and we're the same bodies, and we're dealing with the same problems. So it's like, what? So, and I know we're real private about it, not to discuss our medical matters. So you have to understand that if you're going to come on a group, and there's a group of people there, and you're going to discuss your medical problems, that they're going to hear, you're going to hear theirs, and that's just, you're still relatively anonymous, and you can keep your screen blank so that no one sees you. I guess you could get a voice, something that modulates your voice. I don't know if those are real. I'm sure they exist now, but anyway, it's really an amazing platform that allows us to not only learn about what's going on with ourselves, but other people who will like instigate in you the realization that, yeah, well, hey, yeah, I had that too, or whatever, or you haven't gotten there, and you don't want to get there, or so. But anyway, we learn, and we talk about physiology. We talk about how things develop, how we deal with it, and so it's much, much, much more than just answering a question, because you don't really want a question answered. You want an understanding of what's going on, right? So you don't have so many questions. And that's what we want to do, is help you get that understanding. And we do. That's what we do, right? So join the group, and I will see you there if you join. And those members that are on, I'll see you guys. And then also, the rest of you, I'll see you next week. So aloha, sawadee ka, namaste, namaskar.